What's up everybody, it's Tim, and in today's video I've got a couple short clips to show you here, and it's featuring Bradford, the CEO of Cleanspark, at the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference. We're going to get into that. Towards the middle, I'm going to show you guys the charts on both Bitcoin and Cleanspark, give you a few points there, and then we'll wrap it up at the end with a few more words from Bradford. So if you guys get anything out of this, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's roll that first clip.
I'm Bradford. I am the CEO of Cleanspark. We are a publicly traded Bitcoin miner in the US. I think we're about the third or fourth largest based on hash rate. We do have a focus on sustainability. Our background actually came from the energy business. And so we're currently mining about 90% carbon free and look forward to having a good conversation. You know, in North America, the crisis that we're facing really is price driven. It's not really the same that we're having here. But I think that there's also a crisis on the energy side from a media point of view too, because abundant energy is something that we believe in and something that we believe Bitcoin supports. And there's really a push to conserve energy rather than produce energy. And I think that that's really what we're facing in the US is this perceived lack of abundance for the first time in a very long time. And, you know, also we're continuing to see a push for renewables, which we're big proponents of. But we have done, the things we have done have led to intermittent renewables. So our energy crisis is more about grid stability. It's about making that abundant energy available when we need it, because we really have a mismatch going on in the US right now. And that mismatch of a lot of energy being produced by the renewables during the day, but our heavy usage is in the evenings after the sun goes down. We have a lot of solar. So balancing the grid, creating a sustainable grid is really what we're facing in the US. And Bitcoin can affect that in a great way and in a very positive manner to consume both stranded power, as Andy mentioned, but also be that balancing effect on the grid to keep things stable. So that's a little bit of what we're facing. We operate on the east coast of the US for the most part. Having a background in the energy space, we actually originally, Cleanspark was started as an energy company. So we were in the business of creating grid solutions through production and energy storage through batteries. And the reason that we made the shift we made is because ultimately change, whether it's the energy grid or anything else that happens in human society, right now, most things at large scale, they have to be driven by the markets. And we exited the energy business because you have to find somebody that will pay for what you're offering. And really found that Bitcoin is the perfect intersection. It's an industry where we are standing here raising our hands and we are saying, hey, we will both consume a large amount of energy, and we will be flexible when you need us. And what that really does is it creates the incentives needed to build a generation. The biggest problem you have, and I'm going to use the example of a solar project, is you have a chicken and an egg problem. If you want to build a large solar farm, you have to make it bankable, so someone will finance it. Well, if you're going to use the energy from a solar farm, you need it to be there when you want to use it. So you can't build a business before the energy's there, and the energy can't be built before the business is there. So you have to have this intersection point. And I think what we have is Bitcoin miners. We are set up in a way where we will consume in areas where there's abundant power, but we will always want to grow in a good and positive way. So if we hit the limits of what's available, that's when new generation can be added. That's where new generation can be built to support an existing business that cash flows well and that's willing to be flexible enough to allow the timelines for it to be built. So I think that that's a key point. In order for markets to drive change, somebody has to pay for it, and Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin in general is there to pay for it.
Now, looking at Bitcoin, it took back all of its gains that it just made yesterday, and it's kind of just trading like the market. We had a really nice pop with the market yesterday, and now we have a bit of a pullback. And one thing you'll notice is these two lines above the current share price. This red line is our long-standing descending resistance. We did have an attempted breakout of it. However, we didn't have a candle close above that trend line. And we do have a new resistance to look out for. This is this yellow line, and it was established in the middle of August. One thing I do see with Bitcoin right now is that price is definitely tightening up. So keep an eye on this tightening pattern. This red line and this red line will intersect right towards the end of October, and Bitcoin's likely to choose a direction soon. Seems like we're definitely getting a lot of tightening up here, and a breakout or breakdown is imminent. One thing interesting with Cleanspark is it was trading in this kind of sideways ascending channel, you could say. And once we broke from that on the 7th of October, we started creating new lows. And on the other day where we had a nice pop in the market, Cleanspark also saw a pop, but it found resistance at that support level on the ascending channel that we had. And now we took it all back and we're hovering right near our lows. Now, if the market continues to tank, I do see Cleanspark falling as well, because Bitcoin and the market has been trading somewhat hand in hand. So if Bitcoin and the market tank, very likely Cleanspark's going to fall as well. But regardless of that, in my eyes, Cleanspark has a very bright future, and I still do believe the 4-year cycles play a huge effect on Bitcoin. We are still in the middle of crypto winter, and I do suspect in a few months we will get some hype leading up to our halving. We're looking at only a little over a year away now, and if the 4-year cycle continues, Bitcoin and in my opinion also Cleanspark will be creating new highs within a year and a half. But that's it from me, guys. I'm going to lead you off with some more Zach Bradford. And if you do want to see the whole Bitcoin conference, I'll leave you a link down below, along with some links to some free cryptos and stocks.
I think, again, the market-based generation is a big piece. You know, one of the things that I think we need to do as Bitcoin miners and as the Bitcoin community is take the narrative. You know, right now we're talking about an energy crisis, but how Bitcoin miners can help solve that crisis, not only with the right now, but, you know, we're creating a crisis potentially for like 2030 and 2035 in the adoption of electric vehicles. A lot of states and countries are actually mandating this. And being a proponent of, you know, a low carbon future, we have to think about how are we going to get there. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of plans to get there. So I'm going to use this kind of niche example. And again, it's if we all wanted to plug in electric vehicles right now, in the US, we would need 30% more generation than the grid has to offer in total. And that is a lot of generation that we need to build in the next 15 years to get there. So again, if we look at that and in the study, all the studies have been done about how much that can decarbonize if all the vehicles became electric, again, we would have a whole new crisis. And Bitcoin miners can solve that crisis by building now, by building the generation now. In addition to that, we can look at more subtle ways that can have an impact, such as, you know, flare mining, where you take a distressed, or not a distressed, but a stranded oil well, it's flaring unusable gas off into the environment, incredibly harmful. We can harness that. Now, the key with doing that, though, and where we have to make sure, again, the chicken before the egg, that we're not eating the egg before it becomes a chicken, is, you know, Bitcoin miners need to be careful, and we need to make good choices, knowing that we're under a microscope. Going to an oil well that is flaring and using that to Bitcoin mine, if that well already exists, that's a good thing. If it creates the incentive to drill the well, then it's a bad thing. So I think that there's a lot of things that make this a more complex discussion, whether it's flare gas, whether it's just the building of generation. And again, I think that we need to take over the narrative as the ones solving the energy crisis, as the ones helping create that renewable energy future. And, you know, us as a company, we're actually focused on kind of championing nuclear power, because nuclear power is something that I think is feared often. We're seeing a lot of things happen in Europe where they're turning plants back on because of energy sovereignty needs. But you know, it's a base load. It doesn't produce carbon. And I think that one thing that is true about nuclear in general that's different maybe from some renewables is you can build renewables both small scale and large scale. Nuclear, the best way to build it is really large scale. Well, there's no better large scale consumer of power that can be done in a fairly concentrated location than Bitcoin mining. So I think that there's going to be something, you know, to be said for that. And those are going to take a decade to kind of prove out. But, and to kind of wrap up my thoughts, again, to the ESG narrative, having an impact on real communities, in a small community we operate in, we're not only offering jobs that were vacated by factories, but also that city has been at least partially reliant on coal. And we've made investments such that actually by the end of next year, they will be exiting their reliance on coal. And that even goes with our additional power being consumed. It allows cities to make choices to remove reliance on carbon-based sources and focus on renewable or carbon-free sources. That only happens with investments of companies like ours. Yeah, I'll just kind of piggyback on what Andy said. I think the future is really bright. I think we have a ton of potential. Consolidations already happening. We've actually been a miner who's acquired 2 other facilities in the last 3 months. But it's opportunity is what it is. I think we're going to see a lot of collaboration with utilities. I've only been in the space for about 3 years now, which I guess is a while now. But when we entered, even then, utilities didn't want to talk to a Bitcoin miner. And now utilities are ready to and wanting and pursuing meetings with Bitcoin miners. They recognize what that looks like. So I think the collaboration with public utilities in those markets is going to lead to an expansion, consolidation. It's going to strengthen miners that have set themselves apart as good operators, and also very excited about what the hardware is going to look like in the future.